Good evening. If you can't hear me, please let me know. This is the regular monthly meeting on Wednesday, March 19, 2025, of the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals at 7 o'clock p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. Sherry, will you please take roll?
Tom Schultz,
Here.
Dennis Ermshire, Carol Walter, Bertram Schmitz, Lori Jaffe, Maureen Noonan, Wayne Buchanan,
Here.
Teresa O'Rourke.
Here. Okay, we will see Terry O'Rourke for Birchness and Wayne Buchanan for Carol Walter.
What happened to Maureen?
Okay, next, the first item on the agenda is our minutes for review and approval. And the first item is the minutes for the December 11th, 2024 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, that was Terry Moo.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? The January 15th, 2025 regular meeting and the February 19th, 2025 regular meetings were canceled, so there are no minutes. The next item on the agenda are chair comments. My only comment is that I would like to welcome our new alternate member, Wayne Buchanan, to the board. We're glad to have you. Welcome.
Great.
The next item on the agenda, new applications. There is one new application we will receive tonight and set for public hearing. And that is ZBA 25-3, 30 East Walk, James Whaley applicant, Neil Cochin owner, application for variance of section 26.11.6 front setback, 2 requests, and 29.2.1 expansion of a non-conforming structure to raise the second floor roof to allow for the expansion of the existing living space. Assessors map 70, block 67, lot 120, zone R10. Record ZBA 25-3, Town of Clinton. So that application is received today. It will be set for public hearing at the next meeting, which is April 16th, 2025.
Are you doing that?
What are you doing?
You should.
Okay.
Is there anybody here for?
I'll entertain a motion to receive and accept ZBA 25-3 for setting that public hearing on April 16th, 2025. Dennis, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, the motion carries. We have one matter on the agenda under public hearing, and that is ZBA 25-1, 37 West Shore Drive. I'll have our secretary please read the notice of public hearing.
Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals, Andrews Memorial Town Hall, 4 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, 06413. Town of Clinton, legal notice of public hearing. The Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Rose Room of the William Stanton Andrews Memorial Town Hall, 54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, to consider the following. 1. ZBA 25-1, 37 West Shore Drive, Ryan Thompson, PE, LS, applicant and agent. Lynn S. and Rick E. Sample, owners, application for variance of section 26.11.8 setback other than a front or rear setback. 2 requests for the relocation of an existing unpermitted pergola gazebo placed in the setbacks in violation of the planning and zoning regulations. Assessors map 14, lot 3, lot 55, zone R-30. At said hearing, all persons will have the right to be heard and written communication received. The applications and accompanying maps and correspondence are available for public inspection on the town's website. Laurie Jaffe, Chair, Town of Clinton ZBA. Email to the Harbor News to appear 2 times on Thursday, March 6, 2025, and Thursday, March 13, 2025.
Thank you, Tom. And we're really going to describe what will happen at this hearing tonight. The applicant will present his case. The board will then ask questions and give comments. The staff will make comments if there are any. We will address the record, just refer to materials that have been filed. They're not part of the record in this application, and ask if there are any documents, other documents to be read in the record. I will ask for the public testimony, both in favor, opposed, or neither in favor nor opposed. And at that point, the board will decide if there's enough information to close the public hearing tonight. In other words, if the board has received enough information to make a decision. And if yes, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing and take a vote on that. So the first step is for the applicant to present his case. Is the applicant present?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to unmute. Good evening. My name is Ryan Thompson. I'm the engineer and land surveyor working with the samples, who I believe I could see sitting in the audience over there. I apologize for not being present physically. I have another meeting, a wetlands meeting in Woodbridge this evening, so I'm sitting in their parking lot, and that starts at 7:30. So I'd like to try to make my portion of this very quick, and answer any questions you have before 7:30, so I can get to that meeting as well. I don't know if you have the map in front of you or if I'm able to share it. If I can share it, I will, but I'm not sure if I can. I'm sorry.
Ryan, if you can't, we have the application materials. Sure, you have you brought it up already in the agenda.
Yeah, I just have to.
Okay, I think I might be able to share it here. So, okay. Tell me if you can see my,
Right. Not for
my
you can go
screen.
the screen and then probably have a poster.
Okay, can you see my?
Ryan, just hold on one moment.
Now I lost it.
Oh.
You're gonna go back to your meeting. Zoom here. Right there. Okay, and then you want to enlarge it. And then go to Ryan and hit the dots. You might have to move your mouse a little bit. You have to click. There you go. And then make co-host.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yes.
Okay. All right. So is it on the screen now?
We can do co-host.
You might have to hit share again over the screen that you're looking at sharing with us right now.
I'm sorry. I didn't quite catch that.
We cannot see your screen, so you may want to hit just share again and then see if that will make sure you
Yeah,
look at
okay.
your screen.
Okay. Can you see it now?
It says that you started your screen share.
There it is. Yay.
Okay. So sounds like you can see it. Okay, good. All right. Let me just make it a little larger. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so this is the samples property. It is 49 feet across, and it is in 67 or so 70 feet deep. Their existing property is or their existing house is right here. This is the 35-foot front setback line. This is the 35-foot rear setback line. There is no side setback line because they overlap because it's 25 feet. So because it's 49 feet width, the setback lines actually overlap. There's literally -1 setback on this property. So the existing property is already non-conforming. And it was built in the 50s, I believe. I'm not exactly sure when it was built, but it was sometime in the 50s. This is the current location of the unpermitted encroaching gazebo right here. Okay, you can see it's encroaching by over 10 feet on both sides, on either side. The samples propose to move it to this location, which is close to the wetlands, and we have gone through the Wetland Commission and gained approval with some specific requirements. Specifically, they want to make sure there's a stump right about here that doesn't get taken out, they want it to cut flush. And they want at least 2 corners of the gazebo to be anchored down so that in the event of a storm surge, the gazebo doesn't get lifted up and moved and become debris. Those were essentially the 2 requests and requirements for their approval. So the idea is that the samples would like to put this gazebo here with 8 feet of space between the corners of the house and the front little deck portion here. This dash line here represents a covered roof area, and it has essentially open sides, but there's some slats and stuff to allow air through. But this part is covered with a roof, and this part is like a little deck that's open. So they want 8 feet between the house and the deck, so that they can maneuver lawn mowing equipment or, whatever needs to be done back here, and have access to the back of their house, and then use the gazebo in this spot. The other reason why this is being put specifically in this location is to stay in line as much as possible. Obviously, they're not exactly the same width, but they're very, very close. To keep it in line with the existing sidelines of the house. You can see it's basically parallel there and parallel here. So as a result of that, because the setback are 25 feet, this corner ends up being 18 feet from the side property line. This corner ends up being 10.1 feet to the side property line, and therefore variances are required. The hardship that I believe they have is that they have a 0.19 acre property, and the properties immediately adjacent to them are all much larger. So not all of the properties in the neighborhood are larger, but a majority of them are. So what happened through the years is that these little cottage lots were developed initially at basically 50 feet wide. And then through the years, the properties would acquire multiple contiguous lots and turn them into larger lots to build houses on. This particular property never happened. It just remained a 50-foot lot. And then the zoning came in after this had been done, which then created a situation where it was non-conforming. So the request is to be able to keep this gazebo they have to move it onto their property and no longer encroach. And the only place to do it on this possible, that's possible on this lot is right here. So that is the request before you. At this point, I'll open it up to any questions or comments. I hope that you can, I hope you can see all this and understand what I'm saying. I know that the technology doesn't make it very easy.
Mr. Thompson, I have a question. When was the gazebo placed on the lot?
When was the gazebo placed on the lot? It was last summer. The samples are present. They can tell you more specifically. I believe it was June or July of 2024.
I will ask them when they present, but they're not presenting now. In June of what year?
I believe it was June or July of 2024.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, I got brought in because there was a violation. So they were notified of a violation, and they hired me after it had been put on the site and they were given the notice of violation. So I got involved around September. So it had already been put in place before I was involved.
Could you reiterate the situation with the septic system and its distance?
So the septic system is, it's right, it's in the front of the tank is, just to the left of the house if you're facing it from the street right here. So actually the gazebo is partially over top of it as it is. But here in front, between the front of the house and the street. So this would actually move it farther away from the septic system.
Definitely will be out of the range of 5 feet.
I'm sorry, what was that?
But the distance is definitely well over 5 feet away, quite within the location.
Yes.
I can't, I'm sorry, I can't understand what you just said. I apologize.
The question was, is the new location, can you confirm that the gazebo would be over 5 feet from the septic system?
Oh, yeah, so it'll be farther than 5 feet from the septic system when it's moved.
Thank you.
Do any other board members have any questions of Mr. Thompson, or should we?
I think we go to the meeting.
All right, is there anyone else here who would like to speak about this application? Are you the property owners?
Yes.
Okay, did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay, would you, Rex, come closer, you better come closer to the microphone.
Yes. We also have letters from our neighbors.
Why don't you come up and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So am I facing you all?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Lynn Sample. My husband Rick Sample. We're the owners of 37 West. Yes.
So they can be everyone.
Absolutely.
Your microphone, it's a microphone.
Oh, okay. Okay. So first of all, introducing ourselves, Lynn and Rick Sample, and we want to thank you, the elected folks here who serve on the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals and devote so much of your personal time to preserving and protecting this coastal blissful place that we love. We appreciate the staff and we appreciate your diligence in applying the zoning regulations. I thought I would share just a little history of the cottage. This is only 1.5 pages long. Won't take me. I'm one of several dozen grandchildren who spent time here most summers in the cottage that my poppy built, Arthur Jones. My dad was in his tweens, shingling the roof. It holds magical memories for my whole life, for me and all my siblings and cousins. We had multi-generational family reunions most years until 5 years ago when my dad died and we were in Pennsylvania caring for him. And then Rick and I inherited the cottage and decided to preserve it. That's when we learned about footprints and non-conforming properties, which is what the cottage is. It's a building that we renovated, and to our chagrin, we were not allowed to raise the roof another 5 feet so that I could stand upright. And right now I can only crawl on all fours in the loft. So the vision of the gazebo had several solutions. It would be a place for my work office when the weather is nice. It would be a place for gatherings outside. And my dream from the time of my childhood was to preserve this unique little place. The Jones family, my kin, had always used the space where the gazebo is now, where they had, we had an existing lean-to, and it was a shed we stored like the tables and things that we put together for picnics and to protect things from the weather. And in the summers when our cousins came, we pitched tents there under the wooden shelter and listened to the rain. And it is still one of the favorite sounds that family members talk about. We are not engineers. And when we ordered the kit to build the gazebo, we hired a handyman to assemble it. But our interest was we wanted the pergola or gazebo specifically designed by us to be attached to a Trex deck so that it would be a floating structure mounted on concrete levelers and not impeding the ground. In other words, it was 3 steps above the flat ground, ensuring there would be no interruption of the flow of water from rain or snow melt from the street to the stream in the back of the house, which is the lowest place in New York. And I hope that alone emphasizes how much we cherish the location of our forever retirement cottage, and we've now lived there 4.5 years here. We paid to have a legal easement drawn up that our neighbors agreed to. And the reason we need to move the gazebo to the back of the house is that not only would we have to seek a variance, but so would our neighbors. And we didn't want to share that burden with them. So we have existed in that space since 1946, which is when the cottage was built. And I personally lived there since 1957. And we love our neighbors, and they lived there since the 80s. Our current living condition made the reason for the need of a gazebo more urgent. Our move here from Pennsylvania during COVID coincided with my office sending all staff home and provided an opportunity for me to bring my job with me and work remotely. Our purposeful intent for the pergola is an office, a storage place, and a safe place to be outside. Because, you see, the Walkley Mill development, which is behind the house, was built in the early 2000s. Because somebody told me 2010, but I don't know exactly when it was built. It's behind us off Airline Road. That's how you get to it. And the result of that building and development has been that water flows from that neighborhood down the hill because it's a higher elevation. And I'm guessing here there might be 20 homes. And the lowest place that it meets is our backyard, plus wetlands. And then came mosquitoes. We've used zappers and mosquito protection and sprays and lotions, you name it, and we realized that we could better solve our love of being able to use our outdoor space as we did as children and young adults, and protect our health and that now of our grandchildren if we installed commercial quality mosquito netting around the pergola, with the added bonus of having a place to store seasonal furniture, entertain friends, have family reunions, and work from much of the year. So all of that was purposeful, and we think a wonderful plan. And I would love to hear any questions you might have for us.
I don't have any questions at this point. Does anyone have any questions? I think very much.
You're so welcome. What do we do about the other, people who want to talk for the?
We'll get to
Let's-
that.
oh,
Okay. Did you want, Ms. Samples, did you want to submit your statement that you just read into the
I-
record?
Yes. I have it written.
She can submit it.
Okay.
That way. it goes.
Give it to Sherry to do. Here, I left in this 2 pages.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Right, so, at this point, I will ask, we'll go around as we usually do, and I will ask the board, if they have any comments or questions about the application.
She.
Well, we'll get to one question. Yes, we'll get to, if there's any, other public testimony or other topics that you want running the record, we will get to that. We'll address the record in a few minutes. Tom, do you have any questions? Comments?
Well, I was just curious how it's on 2 properties, how that ended up becoming that way now that it's become an issue. What is the history of that?
The history was that, we have a relationship with the next door neighbors, and as I told you, we always had that place. And when we talked about building a gazebo, which was last fall, our neighbor was walking through with us and he said, you know what you should do? This is the flattest part in the yard. You should put it here. And I said, you know, I'm a little concerned about your edge of property. He said, no, no, no. I'm telling you to put it there. We'll come up with an agreement. This is between us. And I said, well, then we should draw up a legal easement, which we did. But the reason was that the building inspector, the town building inspector, happened by while it was being finished construction. And he saw it and said, I don't see a permit for this. And I said, oh, I didn't file a permit. I thought because we had this agreement and it was in this space that we've always used, that that was good enough. So my ignorance, absolutely. And I own it and I apologize for that. But that's the reason. And so now we have to move it because it goes on their property. But in order to allow it to stay there, they needed to file the variance as well as us. And we just felt that that was too cumbersome on our neighbors.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Finish that up. Only give your property on.
Yeah, directly behind the
Not
pot.
to do the neighboring one.
Right. And that's Ryan's solution.
Terry, do you have any comments or questions?
No, not this time.
Wayne, do you have any comments? or questions?
Interesting situation. I grew up in a summer cottage neighborhood myself in, with non-conforming properties everywhere. And, so I can appreciate your situation. The neighbor on the other side, do we have any information from them?
I thought she was going to send a letter. Perhaps she didn't send it yet, but they're completely in agreement and they know exactly where it's going. And it's, both neighbors are fine, the neighbors across the street, the neighbors up the road, everybody is fine with it.
And the spot that the gazebo is on is a spot that used to be your shed and then your tent as you were growing up
Where it's on now,
as a child, where it is now.
where it's now.
Where it's now, but it's not in conformance with the current
Exactly,
zoning.
exactly. Yeah. So that's what we have to do.
I understand.
Yeah, actually, could you clarify some for me, because I'm looking at the, oh, I am sorry.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman, I appreciate it. I am.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Then I will go.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm just looking at, on
Can I
Google Maps.
Yeah.
And could you clarify, would this go behind what we're looking at?
So this is the gazebo
Okay,
itself.
right,
It's gonna go behind
right,
this.
so it's not here.
No, no.
Okay, right, that's what I understood, but.
Yeah,
just wanna
behind
understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I can go last with my comments as chair, as I always do. And I have a number of comments. I hope you can hear me, Mr. Thompson.
I don't think he's on. He had to leave. He had to leave,
Okay.
so he's not on the meeting.
He left. Okay, that's not an issue. Okay, the applicant is seeking two setbacks, two side yard setbacks. The requirement is 25 feet on both sides, and on one side, you're seeking a 10.1 foot setback. And on the other side, they're seeking an 18-foot setback. The hardship claim in the application is the lot is less than 50 feet wide, the 25 feet side setbacks make it impossible to place any sort of accessory structure on the property. And also in his presentation, Mr. Thompson says that in some properties in the area are larger. My comments are the following. First, nothing in the explanation of a hardship sets forth anything that is unique to this property, which is not exhibited by other properties in the area. The applicant has not established there's something different about their property which makes it appropriate for special treatment. Under section 13.2.1A of our zoning regulations, the personal hardship of an owner, such as family situations or family conditions, is not a legal hardship which would support the granting of a variance. Ms. Sample gave us some information and some comments about how she would like to use the property and have the gazebo there, for example, for family gatherings, a desire for an office. I understand that and appreciate that, but we have to apply our regulations as written. And the desire for an outside office and for a place to have family gatherings, if any type of hardship, I view that as a personal hardship, and I believe that's supported by the regulations. Under section 13.2.2A of our regulations, the property merely being too small or too narrow is not a legal hardship unless it restricts the property from being put to a reasonable use. I don't believe that the applicant has shown that this property can't be put to a reasonable use. Indeed, it appears that the family has lived on the property since the 50s and has enjoyed the use of the house, which is wonderful. But at reasonable, the family, I think that shows that the family has been able to use, the applicants have been able, the owners have been able to use the property for reasonable use. Under section 13.23, the hardship must not be created by the owner or his predecessor in title. One example in the section of our regulations for something that is created, self-created, I would call it, is that the owner cannot create a hardship, quote, by building a structure which violates the current regulation. And I do believe that that's exactly what happened here. The owner created, erected an unpermitted pergola in the property setbacks, which is a violation of our zoning regulations, and also is in violation of inland wetlands regulations. And it also encroached on the neighbor's property. So that is, a hardship must not be created, and I think it's very clear that this hardship was created by the property owners. Now, I have some of the same concerns that Kathy Sabona, the town's wetland enforcement officer, stated at the Inland Wetlands Commission regular meeting on March 4th of 2025, when a property owner made an application for approval of the relocation of this very same unpermitted pergola that we are discussing in this application. And I know that the minutes from that IWC meeting have been made a part of the record of this case, so I believe that I can speak about those minutes because they are part of the record. At page 8 of those minutes of the Wetlands Commission meeting, WEO, Wetlands Enforcement Officer Savannah, brought up concerns for the shed being moved by running water should there be flooding. Also on page 8 of the minutes, Ms. Savannah said that she is concerned that the proposed location is only 2.8 feet from the water course flowing into the wetlands. And also, I believe this evening, Ms. Sample gave some testimony earlier about water flowing from a building, flowing downhill. So under section 13.24 of our regulations, the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate the requirements for variance have been met. And in my opinion, for the reasons that I just stated, I don't believe that the applicant has met that first.
Do I get to?
No, but not at this point.
As part, while the public hearing is open, she can respond.
Correct, so we're still in the process.
No, no, that's it. There's a chance.
Do the staff have any comments at this point? No? Okay.
So the Inland Wetlands, Commission, approved the variance.
No, they didn't approve the variance, so you can speak.
Yeah, because
did.
this came as a violation, there's a couple of pieces. So one was it was a violation of inland wetlands, and the other was a violation of zoning regulations. So it was two separate things. So inland wetlands voted on their mileage, and then ZBA votes on it.
Right, but they did grant a permit
Yes.
for this in
Yes.
their, with their concern.
But they need the applicant needs a variance.
I understand.
Correct, they're separate issues.
Yep.
Okay, and at this point, I'd like to address the record. And I believe, Ms. Sample, that you had some, was it some letters that you would like to have read in the record, please, come on up. Well, let me ask Ms. Sample, is this something that you would like to speak to, Ms. Sample?
We just have,
Please step, go ahead, please step up. You have something you would like us to say. And the next I will get to public testimony, the next one, but now we're looking at records.
okay. So we have two letters
Please come
from
closer.
neighbors.
sir.
We have two letters from neighbors. One is across the street from us, so in other words, on the lakeside. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals Commissioners, we are Diana and Eugene Medina. We've lived on 42 West Shore Drive for 53 years across from Lynn and Rick Samples' home. This letter is in favor of ZBA 25-1 for a pergola to be moved to a new place on 37 West Shore Drive. Lynn Jones Samples family have owned this original cottage since being built in the 1950s. I clarified that for you. We were delighted to hear that Lynn and Rick decided to move to Clinton, Pennsylvania, or Clinton, Connecticut from their home in Pennsylvania. They did a wonderful job completely remodeling the inside and outside of their building while keeping the original Boulder Lake cottage flavor, making it a pleasure to look at. We are well aware of the wetlands behind their home and feel that this above ground pergola will not affect the aesthetics of the property, but will blend in with the woodland behind it. Again, we are in favor of them receiving a variance to have the gazebo moved to this new location. Thank you, Diane and Gina now. And I should give you this.
May it already.
That- yeah,
She
that's-
made it.
Oh, that's fine.
That was already.
She did nail it.
That's fine.
Oh, thank
you. We have another letter to you.
Yes, thank you. This is from, the Carmody family who are, that we share the property line with where the gazebo is currently positioned. Members of the Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals, we are next door neighbors of Lynn and Rick Sample. And before that, for several decades, my family were neighbors with the Jones family. The Jones cottage at 37 West Shore Drive has been a getaway for Jones family vacations and annual reunions. Lynn Jones Sample's dad was one of three brothers who inherited the cottage from their father. When the brothers agreed to pass it on to the next generation, Lynn and Rick inherited the property, which had fallen into disrepair. And they had it renovated in 2019. With our approval and encouragement, Samples had a gazebo built on a Trex deck on the edge of the property, which was always utilized by the Joneses. With our input, they chose a flat area that would keep the gazebo shaded and secured within the small tree line, the same location where they used to build bonfires, set up tents and hammocks. Due to the renovation and relocation of their septic, the gazebo and deck overlapped our property line. We completely agreed to an easement with the Samples to allow them to keep their open air building there. In trying to seek the town's approval, they were told by the land use office they would need to seek a zoning variance, not only for their property, but they would need one, but we would need one as well. Because of that, and based on the recommendations of their surveyor and soil scientist, they decided to seek approval for moving the gazebo to their backyard entirely within their property line. We are not available to attend the hearing on March 19th and want the board to know that we fully support them and are in favor of them getting a variance for this new location. Sincerely, Tom and Nancy Carmody.
Thank you. Would you like to put the record?
Yes, thank you. And then,
Is that all that you have?
that's all I have, and so.
Okay, wait.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Okay. I'm good. Okay, at this point, is there public testimony either in favor of this application? Okay, please come forward. Thank you.
My name is Susan Dearborn. I live at 49 West Shore Drive, which is 2 houses from Rick and Lynn. I've lived there since 1996. I don't need to reiterate everything. I did attend the inland wetlands meeting and heard the whole plan and everything, and I think the environment is well preserved, that there'll be no interference with anything in back of their house, that's currently there, and, I think it's a wonderful plan, and unfortunately, we have gone from, when I moved there, I think we had 3 days of mosquitoes. Now we have mosquitoes in December, so the need for a screened in area is a lot more than it ever was before, so I very much support what they're proposed to do, but
Thank you very much. I know I have to ask 3 times, so there aren't 2 other people, but is there any other testimony in favor of this application? Is there any other public testimony in favor of this application? Is there any testimony, public testimony opposed to this application? Is there any testimony opposed to the application? Is there any testimony opposed to the application? And finally, is there any public testimony that's either in favor of or opposed to the application? Is there any testimony either opposed or in favor of the application? And for the third time, is there any testimony either opposed or in favor? So at this point, we will decide whether or not this public hearing is closed, whether or not the board has enough information. Do you have a question?
I do have a question, Madam Chair. We had heard that there was a letter that was being sent by the other neighbor. Did we receive that? Is that?
What Ms. Sample brought with us and what we just received via the side, which is.
So we did not, the
As
town
of this
did not receive
No,
anything separate and apart from what we heard today.
no, Sherry and I actually checked our emails before the meeting, so nothing's.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Yes, the lean-to, has the lean-to been there up until a recent period of time?
No, not recently, because we only came in the summertime. It was a summertime cottage, and we lived in other states farther away. And it fell into disrepair and ended up, back when you were allowed to dispose of things, they got it.
So, about when would that have been, like 20 years ago?
Probably within 20 years, but longer than 10.
So that's approximately where this is being proposed?
I'm sorry, that's where it currently was placed, which was the property line between us and the Carnegies. The proposed is moving it behind the house.
Okay, so the lean-to is where the current location is.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry.
That's why we thought it would be fine, because it's an existing use.
And the reason the wetlands approved it was because they found that it was not a significant risk to the wetlands?
Right.
Am I understanding that?
That's fine. Okay.
And you are gonna cable it, and you're gonna use,
We're gonna use, the, spiral securing things that go underneath it, to secure it into the ground.
it's consistent with the setbacks that the house enjoys.
The setbacks overlap the middle of the house. So, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
That'd be a very thin building. Yes.
Yeah.
But
Did you have another question?
I'm done.
Okay.
I was just gonna say the regulations came into place.
After, understood.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the board members who have made enough decision to close the public hearing. No? Yes? Gary?
Yes.
Wayne?
I was gonna ask you a question about the height of the pergola. is, cause I didn't see some of the drawings online that, I wish I, but, is it lower than the house or the same height as the house? It's not something that would be visible from the street necessarily, or,
It's 10 feet. 10 feet high with the
so
metal
that
roof.
would be below the.
It'll be
line.
Okay, and I believe that there's, enough information here to make a decision. So in that case, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Dennis, second?
Who made the mo-
Dennis made the motion.
Dennis moved?
Oh, second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so the public hearing is closed. So now we move in to the next section, which is administrative, which I call deliberations and decisions. For ZBA 25-137 West Shore Drive. The board has 65 days from today's date, which is the date of the close of the public hearing, to make a decision. So, very briefly, this is a request for a variance, two requests, the location of an existing unpermitted pergola gazebo placed in setbacks in violation of planning and zoning regulations, two side setbacks. And we do have documents in the record, several of which were added tonight. And I'm going to ask at this point for any further comments by the board. What I'm going to do when we go around and I ask each of you, if, when each member speaks, if you would please articulate the reasons that we'll be voting in favor of or against this application. Just very briefly, what reasons are going into your decision? None of the last, thank you.
It's tough, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of problems with the reality of what's happening, but still, I'm still pondering, because I know it's also fraught with mistake they've made, human side to it. Still think.
Well, the need is obviously there, and I understand that, and it's hard, but the regulations that we have at the moment, it does not fit the form perfect.
Because it's a non-conforming lot. And that this footprint matches the houses in terms of the setback. And because it improves, well, the boundary and the septic system violations, I would consider positive.
I'd say that the property is somewhat unique in that it is a non-conforming property that was there before the current, the current zoning regulations, were established. And, as Terry was saying, I'd also agree that it appears that, the removing of the pergola would improve the property and would be within the boundaries of the existing home that's currently outside of the setback requirements. But to me, I think that the fact that there probably are a lot more mosquitoes there maybe than there used to be, and having an outside area, especially when you have a small home like this, an outside area would be appropriate place to be able to relax and enjoy the atmosphere and the times that you're going to be able to be there, you know, to be seen with sort of work. So I'd be inclined to provide a variance.
I will be posting this variance application and for the reasons that I stated in my comments earlier in this meeting. Nothing has been, presented to my view this unique to this property, which is not exhibited by other properties in the area. I think if anything, this is a personal hardship rather than a legal hardship, such as a family condition. And the personal hardship is not a legal hardship, which under our regulations, we support the granting of this variance. The property being merely too small or too narrow is not a legal hardship unless it restrains the property from being pushed to its reasonable use. And I understand that the family wants to have pergola, but in my opinion, that's the regulations should be followed. That's why we have regulations in our town, and there are ways to seek to amend regulations. And finally, the hardship was created by the owners here by putting up an unpermitted, not seeking approval. And this was done after living, I guess it was in October 2024, having lived in our town for several years, and people were charged with knowledge, really unfair, but they're charged with knowledge of the zoning regulations of our town. So I have concerns about being so close to the water course. Being 2.8 feet, and with coastal issues and resiliency issues, flooding is a real concern, and effects of flooding, having a structure of this size, over 330 square feet, possibly coming loose during heavy flooding. So I will be voting against this application. Any staff comments?
I did draw up a draft motion, for consideration, and, certainly, however you vote, I just encourage you to, adopt findings based on the regulations.
And as always, you prepare draft motions, as you all know, correct, you don't know when you're the board, in the affirmative, rather than a motion, not in the affirmative, but people are free to vote yes or no. You don't, it's either a yes to approve or not, but the motion is phrased in the affirmative. If passing it around, if you're taking a look. Is the board ready to vote tonight on this application? Dennis? Gary?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yeah.
Yes, and as well. So take a moment to, please to look at the draft motion, actually, I was prepared.
And also feel free, as Lori mentioned, she noted certain regulations, if you have other regulations that you'd like to put in or use, feel free to do that. This is just a draft, so.
Regulations, I believe are mentioned in,
I did attach them to my staff report.
Right.
But
Right, the regulations, Mr. Muller did, attach them, if anybody wants to go on. And I cited the numbers, and,
if anybody needs, I can, I just highlighted them all.
Happy, could you repeat what you said about the finding?
Yes,
And what you actually meant by that? Sometimes
Yes.
the legal terms are somewhat obscure or confusing.
yes, of course. So when you make a motion, instead of saying, we approve or we deny, it's good if you can bring it back to the regulation somehow. Finally, so, it could be, with the regulations within section 13. Roy mentioned a number of them, but there's other ones as well. You just want to make sure you have some grounding for your decision and some findings of the regulations.
So the reason for that is the board needs to state collectively on the record the reason for its decision. For decisions to lead to principle. The other thing is that if a motion fails to carry and for variance, the applicant needs to receive 4 favorable votes in order to have variance granted. And so if the motion is made in the affirmative and it were to fail to carry, there would need to be a statement from members who did not vote in the affirmative on the record as to why. So if the motion is phrased with findings in a positive phrasing, then the collective reason for those who voted against needs to be reported on.
and I also think that if people don't remember or know the numbers of the zoning regulations, also the phrasing, like a hardship has to be a legal hardship, not a personal hardship.
Yes.
It's not a hardship, really having the property in small. It's not a hardship, it can be created, it can't be self-created by the property owner.
I think that it's humorous that we have in the regulations, the rules of doing a variance, granting a variance for and to actually consider them a rule and not, it's just a little bit of a, was kind of surprising to me as I was going through the documentation.
Well, it's just that if you're gonna grant the variance, these are the legal reasons why you can or could, should, or shouldn't. It's supposed to meet guidelines. If you'd like a copy, do you want a copy?
I have a copy.
Yeah, okay.
I'm looking at it.
Okay.
If
Just
I
make
want
sure.
to rushing, if people look, is the board ready to entertain a motion? Okay, is there a sort of motion to approve ZBA 25-1, 37 West Shore Drive, Ryan Thompson application? Is there a sentence on the motion?
Would you?
Second that motion.
And is that motion, if it's inclusive of the language
Yes.
Kathy provided, then it should be ready for.
Zoning Board of Appeals from Kathy Swaller, the Plans Enforcement Officer, March 17th, 2025. I move to approve application ZBA 25-1 to grant 2 side yard setback variances. One, to allow a 10.1 foot side yard setback on the north side of the property where 25 feet is required. And the other to allow an 18-foot side yard setback on the south side of the property where 25 feet is required for a pergola located at 37 West Shore Drive, Clinton, Connecticut, as shown on plans titled Zoning Locations Survey of 37 West Shore Drive, prepared by RCL Thompson LLC, dated 12/16/2024, and adopt the following findings of fact. 1, the application has met public notice and hearing requirements pursuant to CGS Chapter 124, Section 8-7D. 2, the proposed pergola will not adversely affect the use of neighboring property. 3, the location of the existing home and septic tank on the property, coupled with the undersized lot and significant presence of inland wetland limit potential locations in the pergola. 4, strict enforcement of setback requirements for this property would result in a hardship pursuant to section 13.2 of the Clinton zoning regulations.
Is there a second?
Second that motion.
That was Wayne.
We take a roll call vote. Any other comments that we haven't, any matters we haven't discussed before?
I have a question for that. So, we talked about the property's use, as part of the, I can't remember the exact phrase, quality of life issue. That is part of our consideration.
It's right here, you're looking at whether or not the proposed use and variances are tied to the reasonable use of the residential property. So is the variance necessary in order for the applicant to exercise the reasonable use of the property?
Personal hardships that is native family condition or financial is not a legal hardship.
Right.
Tom Schultz. Is that in favor or opposed?
To not approve.
Dennis Ermshire. Lori Maureen, no, Maureen's not here. Wayne Buchanan,
I'm going to approve.
Teresa O'Rourke,
I vote to approve.
Lori Jaffe. Okay, the vote was 2 in favor of granting the variance and 3 against the variance.
Yeah, more specific findings now.
So so what would be useful is for those who voted not to approve, to state on the record your reason for not.
Okay.
Dennis,
I did not see the legal hardship.
Terry,
Terry voted
no,
yes.
she voted yes,
Tom.
was Tom,
Same reason.
no legal hardship.
Multiple issues. All variances and violations. What happening?
Lori,
For section 13.2.1A of the zoning regulations, personal hardship. If anything, there was a personal hardship that was expressed by the owner, not a legal hardship, which is necessary to support the granting of the variance. Under section 13.2.2A, the property would have, to approve the variance, it would have and the size of the property would have to restrict the property from being put to a reasonable use. And that was not established here because the owners have reasonably used their home for many years. The applicant did not show that the property could not be used to put to a reasonable use in the absence of a pergola. Under 13.23, this hardship was created. This alleged hardship was created by the owner of the property by building and erecting the gazebo in violation of zoning regulations and inland wetlands regulations. And the 13.2.4, the applicant failed to meet the burden of meeting the requirements to show a variance.
so the motion failed to carry with 2 voting in favor, 3 voting against it, and there were no abstentions.
Business?
No, there's no new business. Some of you are going to be attending the Connecticut Bar Association meeting coming up this Saturday, I believe.
Saturday.
And there's another training opportunity that will email out to you for an in-person training in April coming up for Rock Plan Review and more kinds of updates on that, so.
Is there any correspondence?
And then again, I didn't quite. I
There's
have a little bit of a hearing to be.
We'll send out some additional training opportunities for folks, so that there's some plan, the next one coming up is specifically related to plan review and going through that process.
Does the ethics training come to a 4 hours requirement?
I'm gonna check in and see if we can harness them, because I would like to.
Is there any correspondence?
No.
Not to my knowledge.
Any additions, next item is additions to the agenda for the April 16th, 2025 regular meetings. We will be having a public hearing for the East Block, is that correct?
Correct.
CBA 2593.
Yes,
Are there any other additions?
not at this time.
Anything else? Sam, any additions?
No.
Okay, well, I'm taking a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
At 8:10.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got a point of clarification.
Second.
Thank you, Sam.
When-
The meeting is concluded.
And
Do we keep the motion?
Yes, if you want, I mean, it's not, but that is how much.
hold on,
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much.
Hold on.